Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was banished his village and he falls in love with femme Itachi? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Summary. Naruto makes a choice. One few people saw coming. I do not own Narutoverse, anime, manga, or the characters. I am not making any money writing fan fiction. Warnings. There is no yaoi, / in this fic but the pairing is Itachi, Naruto. Unlike most fics where Naruto is female, born or changed, I decided to make Itachi female. Want to know how? Read and find out. A lone figure clad in the trademark red cloud black cloak of the Akatsuki waited under the stunted pine tree. A small purple frog with orange markings appeared with a poof bearing a scroll. The Akatsuki knelt to take the scroll. A bitten thumb swiped against the blood seal allowed the scroll to be opened and read. Do you know what the scroll contains? The frog nodded. Hi. Jiraiya says it is time to clean house. A slow nod was the response the summoned creature got. Tell Jiraiya I will be ready. 3 months later, one particular Konoha shinobi worked his way through a pile of paperwork in the Hokage's office. Tsunade sighed and studied the spiky blonde head, guilt and anger filling her heart. I cannot change your mind, can I? It was a statement, not a question. Naruto lifted his head. Usually bright expressive blue eyes were polished stones. I worked my off for this village. I nearly killed myself to bring Sasuke back alive and the village and council nearly executed me for hurting their precious Uchiha traitor. He shook his head. I cannot take it any more, Ba-chan. I gave and hoped that one day the village would see me as more than just the Kyuubi, but now I see it as a futile dream. Like your dream to be Hokage? Tsunade challenged the Chunin. Of all his friends only Naruto was still Chunin, mainly because Konoha's council refused to support recommendations for his promotion to Junin rank. Naruto smiled sadly. It is a fool's dream. If they cannot see me after all I've done. I took down 2 Akatsuki down all by myself, you know. And the council insisted on giving credit to those Anbu you sent since a mere Chunin could never defeat an S-rank Nukenin. And those bastards didn't show up until everything was over. He pinched the bridge of his nose. I trained for months to fight them, you know. To survive, to bring Sasuke back. He straightened his back. Well, Sasuke is back in Konoha, Orochimaru is dead, Itachi is presumed dead, Akatsuki is no more. I see no point in staying. Tsunade scrambled for something. Anything. But what about your friends? What about Hinata? She knew Naruto had started dating the Hyuga heiress few months after he returned from his second training trip with Jiraiya. Tsunade shivered as the temperature literally dropped in the room. Naruto shifted slightly before speaking. I suppose you haven't heard, but Hinata broke up with me. A vicious grimace twisted his lips in a caricature of a smile. Her clan could not tolerate her continued association with one such as myself. Since that seems to be the common belief in Konoha, I'd rather take my tainted self away from this village so they no longer have to suffer my presence. Oh Naruto. Don't feel sorry for me, Ba-chan. Just sign the damn papers and let me go. But what if I give you a free travel pass? Tsunade tried to get the blonde to bend. No thanks. Travel passes means I'm still tied to this village. I don't want to owe anything to Konoha. Wood splintered under clenched fists. I'm dying bit by bit here, Ba-chan. If you don't let me go, I am probably going to snap and start killing like Jiera used to. Tsunade studied the boy, no the man, she loved as a little brother. Most shinobis generally had a counselor or at least friends they could talk to, but Naruto never did. He could not open up to the regular counselors who looked upon him with disgust and loathing. The old rookies were acquaintances, not trusted friends. The only one he confided in would be Jiraiya because the Gamma Sannin put his student above Konoha. In recent years Naruto had pulled back from everyone in the village, Tsunade, Shizune and Iruka included. He didn't trust them to give him a higher priority than the village, and he was right. Konoha came first. Tsunade nodded slowly. Give me 2 hours. Send Jiraiya to me as soon as possible. Naruto rose and bowed his head before vanishing in a swirl of air and leaves. Tsunade pulled out a particular scroll and unsealed several thick files, reports on the attacks and assassination attempts one Uzumaki Naruto experienced at the hands of Konohans, attackers that were never prosecuted or punished. Her anger and distaste grew. The best revenge she could get was to make sure her little brother got free of Konoha, free without the idiots on the council marking him as a nukenin. A sly smile curled her lips as she considered the best way to do this. She was lost in thought when a cheery greeting brought her to reality. You called Tsunade Heim. Oh, Jiraiya. Yeah, I wanted to see you. Her expression turned sober. Has Naruto talked to you? About what he wants? The Gamma Sanin's expression turned very neutral. About resigning his shinobi status. Hi. And if you have any brains and common decency, you'll help him. But he will never be able to return. Jiraiya interrupted her gently but firmly. He doesn't want to. Even I can see he has no reason to. You and I are respected and highly sought after whenever we return to Konoha after a long trip. Naruto. Naruto only gets spit in the face and attacked, his property is stolen or destroyed. He is only human Suheim and all humans have their limits. Tsunade nodded slowly. I understand that Jiraiya, but I don't want Naruto to be marked as a nukenin and put in the bingo books. The council must not have any legal means to go after him. Jiraiya's expression turned very serious. Strip him of his shinobi status and banish him. Get the daimyo to revoke his citizenship status. Tsunade's eyes went very wide. Don't worry about him. He already has honorary citizenship in many other countries, Wave and Spring included. Even sooner if he needs it. But don't let anyone find out until it is a done deal and Naruto is out of Fire Country. A chill ran down Tsunade's spine. But that is so final. I know. His father would not want this. Sensei would not want this. They are dead and have no say. We are alive. Jiraiya was brutal in his honesty. Frankly, I'm more concerned about Naruto's sanity than old promises that were never honored or ones that should never have been made. Seeing her hesitancy, Jiraiya softened. He will always call you Ba-chan, he will never cut ties with Tsunade. Just with Konoha. Tsunade nodded. All right, I'll do it. Tsunade heaved an internal sigh of relief. Just the usual closing comments and this bloody council meeting would be over. Godime-sama, there is a matter of concern that has not been addressed. Tsunade turned cool eyes to the sweaty fat civilian, some guild head. Really? What is it that has you so concerned? Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade raised an arched brow. Taking this as an invitation to continue, the civilian continued. He has been missing from Konoha for some weeks now. According to the mission reports, he has not taken any assignments that would take him outside Konoha. No one has any information on his whereabouts. I would like to move to have him marked as a nukenin. Honey eyes iced. Uzumaki Naruto is of no concern to this council. But Godime. Uzumaki Naruto is of no concern to Konoha and Fire Country. I have discussed the matter with the daimyo and he agreed with me. Naruto has been stripped of his shinobi status and Fire Country citizenship. Cold eyes stabbed each of her most vehement opponents. In the past she had to tread lightly, fearful that they would retaliate against her loved ones, but now she had no hostages. Jiraiya and Shizunes were the only ones she still cared for, and both were not vulnerable to the council machinations. My last communique put him in Nami since he accepted the honorary citizenship they pressed on him for saving their country from Gedo when he was a mere genin. Hyuga Hiyashi stilled. Godime, you can't be serious. I let the shinobi who was betrayed time and time by his own comrades and this village leave with his honor and freedom intact. Tsunade smirked. The daimyo agreed with my decision. He felt Sarutobi did very badly by giving into this council's demands and turning a blind eye to the inhumane treatment Naruto received growing up. The two of us decided it is illegal and dishonorable to execute a loyal shinobi for the crime of being too strong, but since neither of us wanted to force Naruto to stay in Konoha, and take the chance of him snapping under the unrelenting blind hatred of the ignorant bigots who live in this village. If he ever gives in to the rage that any human in his shoes must be feeling at this point, he will be far more destructive than the Kyuubi because he has the mind, intelligence, and allies of a human. She felt pride, satisfaction seeing the terror on their faces as they realized just what they had created by their actions. She took a long sip of water before continuing. Uzumaki Naruto is currently based out of Nami as a bounty hunter, and he has agreed to avoid Konoha shinobi and Fire Country. He has sworn he will not attack any Konoha shinobi or Fire Country civilians unless he or his is attacked first. And I trust his word of honor more than I trust most of you. Her smile was more of a deathhead's grin. If he kills or maims any Konoha shinobi, it will be considered as a righteous kill due to interference on Konoha's part. Unfortunate but expected due to our shinobi lifestyle. The smile bloomed into full vengeance. In addition, Princess Yuki of Snow Country, now known as Spring Country, has given Naruto citizenship in her country as well and appointed him as a royal liaison. She has given him diplomatic immunity status usually given to ambassadors. Any country that has a treaty with Spring has to respect that. That includes us, since the daimyo is not willing to risk losing cheap foodstuff imports from Spring Country. Several faces turned several shades whiter when they realized the full implications of the Godaime's words. Uzumaki Naruto was out of their reach. They could not touch him without being executed for treason by the Hokage and the daimyo. Uzumaki could go to their enemies and sign up as a mercenary or even register as a shinobi, and they could not do anything. Nara Shikaku shifted uneasily. Godaime, this was not a good decision. Oh, I agree, Shikaku. It completely sucks for Konoha. We lose a powerhouse, a shinobi who killed two S-class Nukenins on his own, one who was completely devoted to Konoha, the one who changed my mind about becoming Hokage, but you know what? She leaned forward. I don't care. You up big time. If it comes and bites Konoha in the well, who petit do? She leaned back in her chair. If you are so scared, spend your own money to hire shinobis, but don't expect them to return. She studied her polished nails. Naruto is very, very good. He's never been given anything in his life. He's always fought and shed blood, sweat, and tears to develop his skill. No Chunin instructor or Junin in Konoha bothered teaching him a damn thing. He had to teach himself the basics that most academy students are drilled in. Bits and pieces of whatever he found in different places are cobbled together through observation. Unlike spoilt clan brats who had the full benefits of specialized teachers, clan techniques, and early training. Several counselors winced at that jab regarding Uchiha Sasuke. Satisfied, the Godaime relaxed minutely. He has no reason to stay in Konoha. His first girlfriend broke up with him, and given the way most people feel about him, he will never find another one and have his own family. His friends have abandoned him, only going to him when they need help, never supporting him or his dreams. This council has refused to promote him to Junin despite all his successes. He succeeded in bringing back a traitor who was promptly reinstated and promoted above him, while he was fined for using excessive force for defending his own life. The few people who do care for him have their own lives and concerns. Would you stay in such a village? Several of the clan leaders turned away shamefaced. Everyone knew it was wrong. Reinstating the Uchiha after such light punishment for such a serious crime, for punishing the one responsible for retrieving the precious Sharingan Kekai Genkai, but none had supported the furious Godaime. They did not wish to use their political leverage in what was of little import to them. The representatives of the minor clans that did support the Hokage, Inuzuka and Aburame, were smiling sadly. Tsunade shook her head. This matter is closed. If I find anyone authorizing missions concerning Naruto, even ones to change his mind, I will execute the one responsible, clan head or no. Cold eyes settled on Hyuga Hiyashi. Any shinobi who accepts such missions will not receive any medical treatment from Konoha medics and subject to 1 month in Ibiki's tender care. Any medic nin who dares treat the shinobis involved will be stripped of his or her license. All involved will have their chakra vessels sealed for 2 months and subject to 6 months of D-class unpaid missions. Eyes were wide at the harsh defined punishment. Unlike Sarutobi-sensei, I will enforce this. The daimyo fully supports me on this matter. And do not imagine you can hide anything. With Akatsuki gone, Jiraiya has decided to devote his intelligence gathering to traitors and law breakers within Konoha. He is especially keen to track all those who would dare harm his student, most likely his only living student since he will never teach another from Konoha. Naruto frowned at his dish of sake. It wasn't very high grade and it would take gallons to have any real effect on him. He often found it was an effective way of encouraging opponents and informants to underestimate him. He wondered what the hell was delaying the freelancer Gameko had promised him. Naruto knew he was good and with Kage Bunshin's he could easily duplicate an army to take out any gang of bandits or regular Nukenins. Unfortunately, this group he was after was modeled on the Akatsuki fashion, invitation only, nins with high-rank combat experience and varying specializations. All experienced shinobi knew the weakness of Kage Bunshin's and Naruto had not quite mastered the Hiraishin to be, all over the place, as it were. He needed a partner for this job. Unfortunately, there were few with the necessary skill level he trusted, so he had been forced to go to Gameko, an intermediary who specialized in introducing parties. A few days ago, Gameko had sent a message with a date, time and place. As he waited, his memory drifted over the past few years. The first few weeks out of Konoha he had been terrified, waiting to see if the council had somehow found a loophole and sent Anbu after him. Or if some wealthy civilian with a grudge decided to put a contract on his life. Or if Ba-chan changed her mind, or was forced to, and authorized a Black Ops mission to execute him. After 3 months he relaxed and began to enjoy life. Bounty hunting as an independent was tiresome work because he had to do everything himself. Naruto found himself depending heavily on the network of contacts and friends he had all over the elemental countries. Hours watching Jiraiya manage his espionage network came very handy as Naruto created a similar latticework around himself. When he came into information on smaller heads, he made a tidy profit by selling the information to other independents without his information network. Information and people were crucial in this business. As long as you knew what people were working towards, you could generally predict their actions. This group, Kuroakuma, they had none of the grandiose schemes of Akatsuki. It made them less and more dangerous than the Biju collectors. Too bad none of the intel ops of the hidden villages had picked up on them. They already had done quite a bit of damage in several trade routes and smaller economies. Luckily, their operations were basically run by 3 intelligent heads. With all 3 heads gone, the body would die just like any other animal. Naruto-san, the spider sent me. A quiet feminine voice barely discerned against the general noise. Naruto inhaled deeply. She had barely registered on his senses. Her chakra control was exceptional to have mimicked a civilian. He would have assumed her to be a waitress if it wasn't for the faint scent of weapons polishing oil drifting from her. Slowly he turned halfway and scanned her. She was standing about 4 feet away. A respectful distance to give just enough warning room for both parties if one decided to attack. If he was to sum up her description in a few words, Naruto would say, deadly and beautiful elegance, and be quite accurate. Her body was slender and toned under the tight-fitting, well-used armored brown leather garments and boots. Over that she wore a mottled olive-green canvas coat treated to be water-resistant. Her weapons pouches were a lighter brown and her weapon harnesses and belts were black. Naruto was certain she was concealing more under the voluminous coat. Given the scuff marks on her outfit, Naruto was quite sure she was very good. Her face was the kicker. Almost triangular with fine porcelain skin stretched over delicate fragile bones. Almond-shaped slanted black eyes set under fly-away dark brows. Long strands of silky black hair escaping from the neat coronet of braids wrapped around her head to frame her face. He could see the flash of steel sanbon used to secure the braids. She reminded him of someone, but Naruto wasn't quite sure who. Oh well, it would come to him sooner or later. Besides, he was more worried about Operation Hydra. Your name? Naruto had given up on making friends at first meetings. He preferred to reserve judgment before reaching out. She bowed her head. Call me Habara. Gameko's local agent can vouch for me. Naruto nodded curtly. Watanabe was a sneak and a coward and a very bad liar since Naruto could literally sense lies using his Kyuubi augmented senses. In the weeks after he left Konoha, he had discovered his sensitivity had increased several fold. A meeting with the fox left him feeling the furball wasn't so bad after all. He had agreed to augment Naruto's body enough so the deteriorating side effects of channeling the dense red chakra would be greatly reduced. All Naruto had to do was to open his senses to the Yoko, so the Biju could receive some sensory input and the emotional benefits. Of course, it meant the fox often egged him into bedding every attractive female just so he could enjoy the endorphins and sensations. Naruto did not mind too much. He had found women outside Konoha found him very attractive. With his loyalties to Sakura and Hinata gone, he had little reason to restrain himself from enjoying the pleasures of the flesh. Firmly he pushed the idea of bedding Habara out of his mind. She was going to be his partner. If she was good, it could lead to a more permanent arrangement, and Naruto wasn't going to toy with someone who could cause him a great deal of physical damage. Oh, it would heal, but the annoyance just wasn't worth it. Carefully he pushed himself off the stool. Let us walk, Habara-san. Some fresh air will do me good. She did not say anything but followed his lead. That was one point in her favor. Most women were complete bitches when you were short with them. At least this one was professional. Both of them knew small talk was pointless. They would know each other better after a practice spar. Naruto had a vague feeling he would be working with Habara for a long time. Naruto watched his partner drink steadily. She had already polished off 2 jugs of sake by herself and was nearly finished with her third. The last job had been ugly. Child prostitution wasn't something that could be prettied up, and for some reason it hit Habara hard. Probably some female thing. They had come to an understanding of each other's limits in the months they worked together, but Naruto did not delude himself into believing he knew everything about his partner. The blonde squinted through the dim light of the not-so-high-class tavern. The acoustics of their booth and the sound-canceling jutsu barrier guaranteed their privacy, so he blurted out the question that had been plaguing him. Habara-chan, would you mind if I ask you a question? Ask away, Naruto-kun. She always insisted on using the affectionate suffix, though she never indicated in other ways that she had emotional ties with him. Oh, they trusted, respected and liked each other. But for both of them the past was taboo, the present and immediate future was all that mattered. Are you related to the Uchiha clan of Konoha? You look like the Tem. She stilled. Tem? She inquired. Uchiha Sasuke. Old teammate. Spoilt brat and all-around bastard. Went traitor and put a hole in my chest. Chased him for years because I promised. When I finally succeeded they closed me out, kicked me to the curb. Naruto explained vaguely. Don't blame you if you are an Uchiha. It's not like you can choose your parents, you know. She blinked. Naruto saw 2 glittering trails down her cheek. Before he could apologize and tell her she didn't have to tell him anything, she spoke. My father was. Her voice hardened. He was a complete bastard. I was happy when Uchiha Itachi slaughtered the clan. She looked at him carefully through the corner of her eye to study his reaction. Naruto blinked. If you say so. He tapped his finger against the age-smoothened tabletop. I never quite understood Itachi though. He didn't seem like the type to just snap. And his excuse, testing his limits. Bullshit. He had another reason. Habara blinked. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Naruto sipped his sake and gathered his thoughts. What do you know of Itachi? Just that he was a prodigy, a genius who climbed through the ranks to become Anbu captain at 13. At 14 he slaughtered his clan, leaving only one survivor, his younger brother. Then he joined Akatsuki, an organization that was collecting the bijous. After the organization was destroyed he vanished. His body was never found, unlike most of his old allies. Naruto nodded. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. But Itachi was one of the most apathetic people I'd met. He said he wanted to test his limits, but slaughtering a clan of cheap copycats who've rested on their laurels so long. I don't think so. He would have just gone rogue, taunting Konoha by thrashing every single Oinin and Anbu team sent against him. He would have tested and penetrated the defense of every hidden village so he could fight the best of the best. The Uchihas must have done something really bad to so thoroughly piss him off. The question is what? Habara did not say anything for a while. Uchiha Itachi is the only one who can answer that question. Yeah, I suppose. Too bad he's probably hiding somewhere far away. It probably would be nice to spar with him without having the whole killing each other issue. You want to talk to him? But why? Itachi is a human being who was probably given a shitty hand like most of us. He probably did what he felt he had to do in order to survive. I just want to know what could have been so bad that he slaughtered his own kin with no remorse. Only he can answer that. Yeah, well, I'm done for the night. Can you look after yourself? Habara snorted, a soft sound. Of course, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded and made his way to the bar to pay off the tab and give some quiet instructions to the bartender. Then he made his way up to his room on the 3rd floor. As usual, Habara had the connecting one next door. He stripped off his clothing, dropping them carelessly over a chair before falling into bed except for his boxers before pulling the blanket over his frame. A couple of hours later he came to with a jerk, flush of red chakra incinerating the effects of alcohol on his body. There was an intruder close by. Naruto-kun. It was Habara. Her chakra was fluctuating unevenly, quite unlike her. Probably the alcohol she had consumed. Her hair was disheveled and spilling down her back. At some point she had removed or lost the picks she used to secure her bun. He watched as she discarded her coat, then the close-fitting armored vest. She struggled with her boots before they too hit the floor with 2 soft thuds. Then she walked, no swayed towards him. There was no power in her steps or restraint in her motions. Her entire body swayed slightly out of control as she carefully made her way to him. Her face was flushed pink, Sharingan was active from the lapse in chakra control. He had gotten used to it. For a long time he had been terrified. He had only seen the Sharingan in 2 faces, both of whom tried to kill him. Kakashi didn't count because he never really used the full-blown Sharingan against Naruto. Now it represented control, competence, constancy, camaraderie and companionship. What is it, Habara-chan? She managed to sit on the edge of the bed without losing her balance, though she refused to meet his eyes. There is something I have to tell you. After what seemed like eternity she lifted Sharingan eyes to his blue ones. I am Itachi. Naruto stilled. What was she talking about? Itachi was a guy. He stared hard, going over what his senses were telling him. She was telling the truth, or she really believed it. But how could everyone have believed Itachi was a guy? Naruto's brain worked furiously. All right, ignore that question and focus on the starting point. Assumption: Habara used to be the Nukenin Uchiha Itachi. Extrapolate. Everything shifted and formed a dazzling kaleidoscope before settling into a new pattern, one that was far more complete than the old picture. It all made a crazy kind of sense. But going back, how? Realizing she was near her breaking point, he scooted closer and wrapped his arms around her and settled her on his lap, tucking her head under his chin. Tell me everything, Habara. I won't tell anyone else. And then she spilled everything. Her most early memories growing up in barren barracks and raised as an automaton. The regular medical checkups. The near constant training. Returning to the Uchiha clan house just before Sasuke was born. Being pushed and driven through the academy and up the ranks. Occasional blank spots in memories. Blank spots created when her controllers wiped out her memories when she had discovered her true. Going through puberty feeling almost completely due to the treatment of hormones and drugs. Finding out about the truth and memory wipes soon after she turned 14 and deciding to slaughter the clan so they could not wipe her memories yet again. At the end of it she was shaking and crying so hard she could barely speak. I knew I could not break the henge, It was a Fuin jutsu and the only seal's master I knew was Jiraiya, so I decided to join Akatsuki. But after a few months I realized there was no way I could just run off and hide, not when they actually had a chance at succeeding in collecting the bijus, so I started to pass information to Jiraiya. His inside informant. Hi. Once things started wrapping up, Jiraiya broke the Henjin sort of blood oath to not reveal anything about Uchiha Itachi or Habara. Then I left. Naruto crooned softly, rocking the woman in his arms. Jiraiya kept his word. He did not breathe a single word to me or anyone else. He kept your secrets. I was worried for a while that he would tell the Godime. No, he doesn't trust the council. He never tells Tsunade anything he wants to be kept secret. Ba-chan would blurt it out if anyone asked her when she's drunk. Jiraiya is the type to owe loyalty to people. Besides, from his perspective, the Uchiha clan got what was coming to them with their illegal experimentation and child abuse. He doesn't have any tolerance for things like that. Not after Orochimaru. Habara nodded mutely. Then something came to mind. What are you going to do? What do you mean? Do you want to split up? I can understand. Hush. You did what you had to do to survive. Just like me. As far as I'm concerned, everything is square. Besides, his voice turned teasing. We make a pretty good team and I'd hate to break up. Habara laughed, a choked sound that gradually became genuine. What could she say to that? Especially since he was right. Summary. Habara and Naruto make a decision, which hidden village gets their services and loyalties. A secret is revealed. Review responses. Itachi is a girl. Deal with it. I don't have anything against yaoi. In fact, I love reading stars of yaoi and Agni who specialize in yaoi Iden Naru Sasanaru pairings. But the truth is I suck at writing it. Konoha will be in this story. You can be certain of that. Then what is riling you? Naruto hesitated before speaking. Do you like this life? Having no ties, no stable home, owing nothing to any particular village, constantly traveling. Habara stilled. She did not complain about the traveling because they had little choice, they had to go to where the work was. But it would become more difficult, especially if she became pregnant. And she would sooner or later. All forms of birth control had a failure rate. And factor in a Jinchuriki's sperm that most likely more potent than the average male. Not really. But why do you ask, Naruto-kun? Naruto ran a large hand through his messy hair. Curiosity. I've been thinking about the future. Bounty hunting is okay, but having the backup of a village would be better. Most shinobi villages consider their nins as tools to be used and discarded. I will not risk being treated that way ever again. I know. Trust me, I understand perfectly. That is why I think we should study the possibilities to see which village would suit us best. After several days of debate and data analysis, the pair came to a decision. Kumo is the best bet. They are desperate to have a strong Kekkei Genkei and higher profile with potential clients. Habara pointed out. They won't be able to resist the Sharingan and two skilled S-class nins. Their Raikage is getting old though. We'll probably have to deal with his successor in a few years. Naruto's nose wrinkled. Habara nodded slowly. True, but if we play our cards right, we can make sure someone we like is nominated as the next Raikage. Naruto bit his lip. I'm not sure about Kumo's political structure. In Konoha, the council has a great deal of influence. It is usually not the case in Kumo, but the Raikage is getting old and losing control. Habara explained. He was able to protect Niyugido, Jinchuriki to Nibi no Nekomata, throughout her childhood and early shinobi career. In fact, there is some gossip that she is one of the leading candidates to be the next Raikage. Naruto's eyes widened. Sugoi. They are seriously considering her as Raikage. Habara nodded. Hi. Kumo has strong nins, but few have the spark, the drive and power to be Kage level. The clans have become proud and stale. The Raikage is desperate for fresh blood, new life. That is the only reason why he did not stop the Gokuro clan's attempt to kidnap the Hyuga heiress for the Byakugan. Naruto nodded slowly. He could see the Raikage's point of view. He wanted his village to become strong and reputable. If it was at the expense of another non-ally village, then so be it. Besides, wasn't that what all shinobi villages did? Okay. You've convinced me. A wide smile split his face. Let's go pay the Raikage a little visit to see if he's interested. Omada Hiroshi, Yondaime Raikage, shivered slightly as he hunched over the newest paperwork in the cage tower. His old bones were too vulnerable to the biting chill of the tower set in one of the high peaks of Kumo. It was a strategic spot but better suited for young vigorous bodies. Carefully he put down his glass nib pen and turned his thoughts to his ever-present concern, his successor candidates. So far no clear candidates had caught his interest, though the clans continued to push their scions. Hiroshi himself favored his ward, Niyugito, who was Jinchuriki to Nibi no Nekomata. Like the Sandyame Hokage, he took up his old job when his old successor and nephew died, sealing the Nibi inside his grandniece Yugito. Yugito was a superlative kunoichi, an excellent taiko on the battlefield, but she was not a leader. She did not have the charisma to draw attention or set hearts on fire. She was reserved and quiet. Oh, she was decisive and quick with orders when fighting, but she was more inclined to ignore what happened around her as no concern of hers. Not a good quality in a political leader or cage candidate. Even she herself admitted it. But as things stood, she was the only one he could trust Kumo to, someone who would not drain the village to benefit a select few. He wheeled around Kanai out when a soft, polite cough broke the silence. He was tense but not too concerned. If it was an assassin, he or she would never have coughed. Who is there? The shadows peeled away to reveal two forms that emerged from the darkness. A not too tall man with blonde spiky hair wearing a cloth half mask veiling the lower half of his face. His lithe build was dressed in green camo pants, pouches on both thighs, black combat boots, a black turtleneck under a sand-colored trench coat. His companion partner was obviously a kunoichi dressed in green cargo pants and black boots, a black t-shirt under a green camo jacket. She had long black hair twisted in a knot secured by chopsticks and sanbons with long strands framing a pale aristocratic triangular face and almond-shaped black eyes. Neither of them bore a hite, even a scored one to mark them as newcannons, but they were clearly shinobi trained. High-class ones, given that they penetrated the Raikage tower without setting off any alarms. They also bore no killing intent. They wanted something. Feeling a tad more relaxed, the Raikage filled his pipe and lit it before taking a deep puff. What can I do for you? The pair glanced at each other before the blonde man stepped forward. It is more like what we can do for you, Raikage-sama. Rumi eyes narrowed sharply. Perhaps you can start with your names. The pair hesitated before answering. Naruto. Habara. The Raikage perked. Uzumaki Naruto. Of Konoha. The blonde stiffened. Formerly of Konoha. He corrected sharply before forcing himself to relax. Forgive my abruptness, I have almost no good memories of Konoha. Hiroshi nodded slowly. He had heard of how Konoha's Jinchuriki was treated. Fools. They did everything they could to anger the boy. It was a miracle he hadn't snapped years ago like the Godime Kazekage era. I can see. It was disturbing. Sarutobi was a fool. He watched his village prime an explosive tag and did nothing to stop them. Young man, you must have an iron will to have reached your current level with so little encouragement or backing. Naruto blinked and smiled hesitantly. Thank you. Hiroshi shook his head. It is no compliment. It is the truth. I've studied the historical data on Jinchurikis. Those treated reverently, with respect, they served their villages well, often becoming great leaders. It is those despised and hated who become insane and go on killing rampages that are so prominently noted in the records. He took a deep puff. I was determined to not let that happen to Yugito, so I was very strict about enforcing any law I made to protect her. In fact, I forced many of the clans to send their heirs for special training with Yugito. They grew up with her and treated her like any other high clan child. Whenever they heard uncomplimentary things, they were quick to speak in her defense. When they finally learned she was a Jinchuriki, it was something secondary, like a Kekai Genkai. All Kumo shinobis know she is a strong kunoichi and experienced taiko. They know she will not risk their lives for no good cause, that she will do her best to make sure her team returns alive. Naruto bowed his head. I heard that. Jiraiya, the Gama Sanin, he said that Akatsuki always hesitated going after the Nibi because Kumo shinobis were quick to react. The Raikage nodded. When they were active, Yugito spent more time doing missions requiring several squads. Akatsuki is good but not against a group that works like an oiled machine, or a Jinchuriki comfortable with drawing on 90% of the Biju's power without losing control. Especially Nibi. Naruto frowned then nodded. Nibi has control over the dead. Yes. Yugito can reanimate corpses to fight on her behalf. If the death is fairly recent and there is a medic to repair the injuries, she can force the soul back into the body. Naruto's eyes widened. Wow. The Raikage smirked. Yes, wow. It makes her a particular favorite of Kumo's shinobis. All the divisions know to make sure there is a good medic on her team. But enough about Yugito. Tell me about Uzumaki Naruto. What brings you here? Naruto glanced at his companion. You might not be aware of it, but I have left Konoha with the blessing of the Godime and Daimyo. I currently have dual citizenship with Wave and Spring Country. I have been working as a bounty hunter when I met Habara. After some discussion, we decided we wished to join a hidden village, Kumo by preference. His blue eyes were level. Habara is practically unknown to most villages, but I assure you she is a skilled kunoichi, S-class, better than me in technique in some fields. The Raikage almost dropped his pipe from shock. Tell me, why Kumo? Is it for vengeance? Do you hope to attack Konoha in the future using Kumo as a shield? Naruto shook his head. No. Konoha holds grudges. I do not. You tried to make your village strong by going through with the Hyuga kidnapping. Don't all villages destroy or steal the resources of others? Scrolls, jutsus, kekai genkais, weapons, shinobis. You had no treaty with Konoha. You were there to sign one, but you hadn't. Hiroshi stared at the young man with thoughtful eyes. That is a very mature outlook. Naruto shrugged. Well, if I hated everyone who treated me badly, I would be full of nothing but bitterness. I've learned to let go and move on to survive. Besides, you are more worthy. You've treated Yugito a lot better than Konoha ever treated me. I think if I lived in Kumo, I would have had a better childhood. Hiroshi could say nothing because it was the bitter truth. He cursed the long-dead Hokages, two particular ones who were responsible for the sufferings of this young man. The private speculation was looking to be more and more real. Uzumaki, could you do something for me? Naruto tensed warily. What? Remove your mask. Naruto blinked but obeyed. The stretchy material rested around his throat to reveal the chiseled features, the long nose, the wide sculpted mouth, the faint trio of lines around said mouth that resembled whiskers. A restless hand ran through the spiky blonde strands while the narrow eyes eyed the Raikage with veiled wariness. Omada Hiroshi nodded thoughtfully and took another deep puff. That explains it. Naruto exploded. Explains what? Why the Yondaime Hokage chose you. Hiroshi explained calmly. I met Namikaze Minato during the treaty talks after the Konoha-Iwa Wars. He was an honorable man, very forgiving and ready to look for the best in people around. He would never ask another to make a sacrifice when he could. The clay pipe tapped the surface of the heavy desk. You are very like him, like your father. Naruto froze. Habara stared at Naruto. He had never told her. Naruto-kun, is this true? The Yondaime is your father. Naruto's shoulders went stiff before he turned to meet his lover's eyes squarely. I have no proof. No birth certificate. No clan scrolls. No letters. Nothing but what I look like. Jiraiya said I most likely am, but I refused to let him tell anyone, even Tsunade Ba-chan. If you think the fools in Konoha would have believed us, you are high on something. He laughed a sharp barking sound. They would say I stole the Yondaime's appearance. Foxes are tricksters and illusionists, you know. Hiroshi coughed discreetly. It does not matter what Konoha says. I know our archives have several blood samples from Konoha shinobis. They were collected from the battlefields for our medics to study. He explained. I'm certain we have a sample for Namikaze Minato. He participated in a sparring duel with my old successor, Yugito's uncle. Hiriko used a Kusari Gama that drew blood. The blood sample would have been preserved. He smiled slyly. If it proves he sired you, you have every right to use the Namikaze name. It is not like there is a clan to protest it no matter what Konoha feels. Naruto turned away, tears filling his eyes. All of Konoha denied him. And here a complete stranger acknowledged the possibility, was willing to help him prove his heritage. He looked at Habara, who smiled with a warm understanding light in her usually cool eyes. I do not care if I marry Uzumaki Naruto or Namikaze Naruto. You are one and the same and I love you. She voiced her opinion and support. Naruto bowed his head briefly before straightening with fresh resolve. This proves my point, Raikage-sama. You are willing to see beyond the surface, to consider what most people would not. I would be honored to serve you as a Kumo nin. Habara stirred. But we are a bit concerned about your successor, the Rokudaime. We would like to meet him or her before fully committing to Kumo. She shuddered. We will not risk being bound to serve one unworthy. A germ of an idea found root. Hiroshi smiled slowly. I have no fixed choice for my successor. Currently Yugito is the most suitable candidate. The couple looked at each other. Habara spoke. Could we meet her? The Raikage knew if he pushed too hard he would lose them. The man would only serve those he cared for, the woman would follow him. Trying to bind these two would be like chaining the wind or binding lightning, possible but eventually a futile endeavor. Of course. First let me prepare a set of visitors' papers for you two. For 2 months. That should be enough time for you to make a decision. He opened a few blank scrolls and began writing out the details of a visitor's pass. A slow smile spread across his face as he imagined the possibilities. They were looking for a place to put roots, to grow a family. The children of a Jinchuriki, an S-class shinobi, the potential was unlimited. This could be the source of the fresh blood he had been looking for. I know in canon Nibi only has control over corpses, I'm changing it a bit here. I know in canon the Raikage is obsessed with Kekkei Genkei and war, but remember, this is AR in my story. Toodles. Review. Summary. The Chunin exams are taking place in Kumo and Konoha shinobis gets some unpleasant home truths in their faces. Disclaimer in Chapter 1. Review responses. All of you looking forward to seeing Konoha get a smack in the face, this is for you. Itachi's female, true name Habara means Fire Rose. Fire, Hi, Rose, Bara. Star notes Naruto is becoming the Rokudaime Raikage, while Hiroshi is the Yondaime Raikage. You might want to go back to Chapter 3, Choosing Loyalties, and read it more slowly. The Godaime Raikage died sealing Nibi into Yugito like the Yondaime Hokage. When that occurred, Hiroshi took up his old job like the Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi. The numbering of the Raikages might be off compared to Canonverse, but I've already stressed Kumo as OOC, this is an alternate reality. Sunstar Kitsune, you'll definitely meet their children in the next few chapters. Naruhinafoverxt, Tsunade will catch up with Naruto, but remember things never stay the same. Change is the only constant in life. Happy New Year everyone. Remember, this story is focusing on Naruto and his relationships, not the Chunin exams themselves. Uchiha Sasuke frowned as he made his way through the cobbled streets of Kumo. The main avenues were broad and wide, but the side streets were ancient and winding. Kumo was much older than Konoha and it showed. He didn't understand why he was one of the 3 additional Junins sent for the Kumo Chunin exams. Kakashi was here and he also had the Sharingan. Sasuke felt it was a waste of his time, especially since the Kumo shinobis were very circumspect about practicing in the public training grounds with all the foreigners and competition around. He sighed. All 3 Konoha teams had passed the first exam, a basic recon and intel gathering exercise. Each team was given a different target, a Kumo Chunin, to trail in a training room designed to mimic several blocks of a small town. They had to observe the target and retrieve specific papers the target either carried on them or secreted in a hidey hole that had to be located. The second exam was being held right now. Distantly Sasuke wondered how many would pass. In his first Chunin exams the proctor, Mitarashi Anko, literally cut the candidate pool in half by her choice of test. Each team had either a heaven scroll, or an earth scroll. In order to pass they had to secure the scroll they didn't have from the competition and reach the tower with all members. That meant only half the teams that entered could pass. Sasuke wondered if Kumo would have something similar. A flash of gold distracted him. Sharingan eyes followed a blonde head covered with spiky untamed tresses. A tall broad-shouldered Kumo nin wearing gray camo pants, black combat boots not shinobi sandals, a navy blue turtleneck, a green flak vest, hite tied around the right bicep. A girl barely in her teens wearing the Kumo hite tied around her arm was chasing him. Namikaze-sama. Namikaze-sama. The blonde Kumo nin stopped and settled into a crouch to look the genin in the eye. What is it, Katara? Shouldn't you be with your team and Junin senseis? Katara shook her head. Naoko sensei and Ishin sensei gave us the day off. They have things to do for the Chunin exam. But I have a message for you. She held up a folded piece of paper. Namikaze took the paper and quickly scanned the contents. Quickly he produced a lead pencil from one of the flak vest pockets and scribbled a message on the same paper before handing it back to Katara. Katara, I need you to deliver this to the academy, too. I know. I always do this for you. Namikaze grinned and ruffled the girl's hair. That's just your luck having me as a neighbor. You get to be my unpaid courier. But I get to meet all sorts of cool people. Katara grinned up at the shinobi. I'll drop this at the academy before target practice. And then she darted off. In an unexpected display of chakra control and strength she launched herself off the stones and towards a building. Her feet impacted with the brick for a brief second before she began running parallel to the ground, along the wall. The blonde shinobi watched her run before mimicking her actions, only much faster. Before Sasuke could react he had vanished somewhere in the maze of tall buildings. Namikaze. The name sounded familiar but for some reason the shinobi reminded Sasuke of Naruto. The way his hair shone gold but was forever a spiky mess. The way he treated the genin, trusting her to do what she said even without a Junin sensei around. These thoughts were foremost in his mind as he wandered back to the hostel where the party from Konoha had rooms. Konnichiwa Sasuke-kun. Come on and join us. We are ordering lunch in our Neji-san's room since it has a private sitting room. Sasuke winced at the cheerful voice of his once genin teammate but reluctantly followed Sakura to the suite Neji shared with Shino. Sasuke had a double room he shared with Kakashi. Sakura was sharing with Kurenai. Sasuke blinked and looked more carefully. Tsunade, the Godime Hokage, was here along with her assistant Shizune, Nara Shikamaru, Yamanaka Inochi and Nara Shikaku. Godime-sama, you are here early. Tsunade eyed the last remaining Uchiha. Given there was no trace of Itachi only this one could restore the Uchiha clan, but he showed little inclination to do so. Determined to thwart her opponents she had shot down all attempts at pressuring him into marriage, or at least agreeing to have council-selected surrogates bear Sharingan-wielding children. Yes. I received a report that concerned me. I felt it was best if I came early to prevent any unfortunate misunderstandings. Sasuke eyed the Godime. She looked like a cat toying with its prey. What sort of information? She smiled benignly. Information about an old friend. Deciding it was best to leave it be, Sasuke settled down to serve himself from the group meal ordered by Sakura. Distractedly he listened to the conversation. The second exam was to locate and retrieve a chakra-tagged scroll within 3 days. All members had to be healthy and mobile when they left the Badlands and reached the examiner's outpost. The catch being there were only 20 scrolls hidden in Kumo's Badlands and 50 teams participating. Even so there was no guarantee all 20 scrolls would be found, so it was possible that fewer teams than 20 teams could advance to the next exam. Sakura's team had failed in the first day. One of her genins had fallen down a gorge and gotten cut up pretty badly, needing medical assistance. Currently the injured genin was in Kumo's hospital getting treated, the other two genins were resting. Everyone was hoping both of the remaining two teams would pass. Sasuke-kun, you look pretty distracted. Sasuke jerked and came to the present. He forced himself to relax. I was thinking. About what? Neji inquired coolly. Sasuke frowned. I met a Kumo shinobi in the streets. He looked like Naruto but he wasn't. A Kumo genin called him Namikaze. The older shinobis, Shikamaru and Sakura, stiffened. The Godime's eyes sharpened. Are you certain, Sasuke? He was called Namikaze. Sasuke blinked and frowned. Positive. She called him Namikaze-sama. Tsunade began chuckling before laughing softly. He did it. He actually did it. Sakura stared at her old teacher. What do you mean, Godime-sama? Who is this Namikaze? I thought the Yondaime Hokage was an orphan with no relatives. Godime-sama, Inochi spoke warily. This is a confidential matter. They have no need to know about. Shut up, Inochi. Tsunade smirked, eyes aglow with predatory intent. Oh no, you are very wrong, Haruno. Namikaze Minato had relatives. He had a son he used as a sacrifice to save Konoha from the Kyuubi no Yoko, a child that he used as a Jinchuriki. A son that was scorned and betrayed by Konoha and those he trusted. Sakura recoiled. Everyone paled. Minato-sensei never married. He never had any children. Kakashi spoke slowly. You are incorrect. He married Uzumaki Kushina, a shinobi from Uzi no Kuni who joined Konoha's ranks as an Anbu. They kept their relationship quiet because Minato had many enemies. When the Kyuubi attacked Konoha, he used his only child and heir as a vessel to seal away the Kyuubi. His dying wish was for Konoha to see his son Naruto as a hero. But they didn't. Shikamaru could see it all. They saw him as a monster. As Kyuubi. And they treated him like Suna treated Jiraiya before the Oto Suna invasion. Before he met Naruto and became Kazekage. Tsunade smiled, a slightly warmer expression. Correct, Shikamaru. I don't know what Sarutobi-sensei was smoking, but he up big time. He failed to protect Naruto or honor Minato's last wishes. He allowed the son of our greatest hero to grow up hated and abandoned in an orphanage where he was subject to several assassination attempts by Konoha shinobis and civilians. The younger Junins paled, their imaginations readily filling the gaps, what was unsaid. I don't know how Naruto survived, how he grew up into such a decent young man, but he did. I guess the little kindness he got from Iruka, the ramen stand owners, a few Anbu, Sarutobi, it helped keep him sane. She stared at three faces in particular. But after being betrayed by the one he called brother, ignored by his own Junin sensei, used and discarded by his first crush, all these things add up, you know. After the fifth time the council denied his application to write the Junin exams, he decided to cut his losses. He told me he wanted to leave Konoha, so I let him. I banished him so Konoha's council cannot mark him as a Nukenin. I wasn't going to force him to stay in a village that hated him. She explained bluntly. If things continued, he would have snapped and gone Jiraiya on all of us or mimicked Itachi, and no one would be able to stop him. He is a Jinchuriki, you know, trained by the Sannin who taught the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto took down two S-class Nukenins from Akatsuki all by himself because the Anbu teams I sent to help him took their own sweet time getting there. She glared at Kakashi, who was very pale, his hands clenched and unclenched in an effort to still the tremors. Shino exhaled sharply. It explains so much. Tsunade smiled. Yes, it does. Please, feel free to talk to your parents, your so-called elders, about their actions. Only two clans in Konoha supported my requests about Naruto, the Abarames and the Inuzukas. They are the only two that have my full confidence. Shino bowed his head. My clan knows what it is like, to be disliked and feared for what we contain, to be seen as freaks. Shikamaru glared at his father. I don't see any logic in your actions and choices. In fact, I think it is completely illogical and up. If all of Konoha is like this, frankly, I think I want to be banished as well. Neji inhaled deeply. As much as I dislike Naruto's choice of new village, I cannot help but agree with Shikamaru. He stared blankly ahead. I told him he could never understand the pain and burden of being cursed by a seal, by destiny or fate or some power he had no control over. How childish of me. What I've borne is but a fraction of what he's endured. Kurenai glanced at her clenched fist. She had not paid much attention to the Jinchuriki, considered him an irritant of no consequence. How wrong she was. Tears spilled as she realized just what Konoha had done. We've driven away the Yondaimi's son. Yes, you have. Tsunade agreed smugly. And now he has joined Kumo. If we are very lucky, none of us will ever face him on the battlefield because that boy doesn't know how to give up. She glanced at Sasuke, who paled and looked away. Sakura shook her head. We can't just leave it. He doesn't belong here. He belongs in Konoha. Her clenched fist shook. We should. She cried out as the Godime backhanded her once apprentice into the outer brick walls of the room, though not hard enough to make a hole through the wall. Sakura choked as Tsunade's strong hands gripped her throat and slammed the pink-haired Kunoichi against the wall. Listen to me, you bitch. Naruto is off limits. I said this to the council and I say this to you and every Konoha shinobi in Kumo. If I find anyone authorizing missions to involving Naruto, I will execute the one responsible. I do not care if it is a mission to assassinate him or to change his mind about Konoha. Any shinobi involved will not receive any medical treatment from Konoha medics, will be subject to 1 month in Anbu torture and interrogation, have his or her chakra vessels sealed for 2 months, and subject to 6 months of D-class unpaid missions. Repeat offenders will be killed outright or have their vessels sealed permanently, and right now you are tempting me to do just that. I have already enforced this law several times with the full support of the daimyo, so don't push me. The Hokage released the kunoichi, allowing the younger female to collapse to the floor on her butt like a puppet whose strings had just been cut. Then she turned to glare at the wide-eyed audience. Stay away from Naruto. Do not approach him. Do not communicate with him. If he chooses to approach you, it is a different story. All of you have already done enough to him. Now leave him be. The angry Godime stalked to the exit and literally tore the door off its hinges in her haste to get out. Shikamaru shook his head slowly. Shino, could you ask the clerk to send for a carpenter? The damages can be added to the bill. Then Sasuke spoke. We only have the Godime's word that Namikaze is Naruto. Shikamaru heaved an exasperated sigh. If you wish to lie to yourself, feel free. I for one am almost certain he is Naruto and that he has joined the ranks as a Kumo shinobi. He shook his head. The tactics used by the Kumo nins, it kind of explains things. What do you mean? Neji was interested. You've heard of Kumo's growing reputation, right? How their profile has been growing, and they've been receiving big merchant contracts. Everyone nodded. Naruto has friends everywhere. He's traveled all across the elemental countries with Jiraiya. Sasuke stilled. Tazuna named the bridge in Wave Country after him. The Great Naruto Bridge. And Princess Yuki in Snow Country. Those are the two big ones. Naruto probably has lots more contacts in different countries and towns like Jiraiya. If they trust and like him, they trust and like Kumo. But what about Kumo's increased battle prowess? The new jutsus, aka Arashi and Hanishin. Neji wanted to know. It could be a multi-pronged plan launched by the Yondaime Raikage. Naruto leads the trade and economic growth while aka Arashi and Hanishin direct and led field operations and other unknowns revamp training and R&D. Shikamaru explained. But we cannot do anything about Naruto. Frankly, I'm not interested in having my chakra vessels sealed, so I suggest we concentrate on aka Arashi and Hanishin. Everyone reluctantly nodded, though several individuals had their own private plans. The Konoha contingent was very quiet as they watched the last remaining genins make their way out of the Badlands and to the examiner's outpost, a barrack-style house where the Junin senseis and examiners waited. One of those examiners was a pregnant woman who was treated with great deference and respect. She was dressed in a thigh-long sky-blue maternity tunic over navy-blue hakamas. Both garments were embroidered with tiny crescent moons and spiral swirls in silver thread. Like quite a few Kumo nins, she wore black combat boots and carried a naginata slung in a quick-release harness across her back. Her weapon pouches and kits were slung the opposite way across her front and over her belly. She wore her hite wrapped around her left bicep. Despite her heavy gravid form, she moved with the grace and control of a trained fighter. It was surprising to see a kunoichi in current state still on active duty as an examiner. As she moved, she drew masculine eyes and interest. From the back there was no indication of her advanced condition, just her slim shapely form. When she turned in profile, her elegant features were what drew the eye. Narrow refined bones under porcelain pale skin, fine silky black hair twisted into an elegant knot secured by chopsticks and senbons, cool liquid black eyes set under delicate arching brows. Habara-sama, the last genins have been sighted. Teams from Konoha and Iowa. Habara inclined her head. Good. Make sure all the wounds are treated, and the scrolls verified. How many have passed so far? Her voice was low and throaty. 12 teams. 5 from Kumo, 1 from Konoha, 2 from Iowa, 1 from Kusa, 1 from Mizu, 2 from Suna. Habara raised a faint brow. I am surprised and impressed. Chakra sensing and tracking tends to be higher-level specialized skills. There is knack to it, Habara-sama. Once a few figured it out, the rest did as well. True. Once the cutoff has passed, call the genins and announce which teams will proceed to the next level. The next stage will take place in 2 weeks. With that, she walked out off the barracks overhang and towards a Kumo Junin who responded to her soft words. The pair walked off at a brisk but steady pace. Who is she? Neji wanted to know. The Kumo Junin examiner standing nearby glanced at the Hyuga and smirked. So Konoha was interested in Habara-sama, too bad for them. That is Habara-sama. She is one of our best kunoichis. Neji glared the smarmy Kumo shinobi. She is pregnant. You are allowing her to risk her health and child in a potentially dangerous environment. Tashinoko Iori laughed long and loud before he managed to speak between guffaws. No one tells Habara-sama what to do. She is a force of nature. Besides, everyone in Kumo knows better than to attack her. If an outsider is fool enough, Iori shrugged. She would be the least of the idiot's concerns. Neji frowned but did not press. It was clear Habara was one of these new Kumo elites. Hopefully someone else would be able to find out more about her. Perhaps from a civilian. Sasuke sighed as he made his way through Kumo's marketplace. The quality of glass and crystal sculpture was quite exceptional. He had spent part of the morning watching some retired Kumo shinobis use chakra control, futon and kaiden jutsus to shape the delicate fragile materials into works of art. His senses spiked. Quick footwork took him out of the way, but he did not completely avoid the small form running into the back of his legs. The boy had tried to avoid him as well. Atei. The small form fell on his butt, practically rebounding from the impact. The small black head tilted back to meet Sasuke's eyes. Gomen Nasai Shinobi-san. Sasuke froze as he looked into Sharingan eyes. 1 tomo spun in the left eye, 2 tomos in the right eye. The boy looked to be around 5 or 6 years old. No Uchiha had ever activated the Sharingan at such a tender age. The boy stiffened seeing the Konoha hite and scrambled away on his butt. In a flash he turned and scrambled to his feet and away. Then Sasuke realized what was happening. Stop. He chased after the surprisingly agile child. The brat was taking full advantage of his intimate familiarity with the alleys and narrow side roads. Wait, I just want to know your name. The boy did not listen but continued to dodge and run. Ka-san, he cried, running straight to one of the workshops. Ka-san. Sasuke almost froze from the spike of killing intent. He just barely managed to avoid being stabbed by a kusarigama thrown by a very skilled, very fast nin. The weapon was retracted by a sharp jerk on the chain where it was caught by a kunoichi who moved between him and the boy. Sasuke froze as he took in her features. Uchiha delicate features, the almost triangular face, black eyes set under winged brows, silky black hair twisted into a knot secured by wooden chopsticks and steel senbons. He watched her shift to the balls of her feet, preparing to throw her weapon if he moved. Her face was cold, almost mask-like, as she studied him like she would a snake, a rabid predator. Sasuke forced his eyes to the boy who was clinging to the pants of her navy blue hakamas. Then up. He nearly threw up when he absorbed what he hadn't seen from the start. She was pregnant, almost full term given the way the material of her tunic caught around her rounded bulge. Quickly he retreated, holding his hands up. If she was Uchiha, if the boy was her son, Sasuke did not want to kill his own relatives over a misunderstanding. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. She tilted her head to one side. Yes, I know. Catching his surprised look, she smirked, a very familiar expression, an Uchiha smirk. Do you think we would not have dossiers on foreigners in Kumo? Sasuke focused on one nugget. You are a Kumo kunoichi. She merely stared at him. Sasuke felt his hands shake and clenched them to still the tremors. Uchihas have always been Konoha shinobis. She snorted. The bastard who sired me was an Uchiha. I am not. My husband is not. My son is not. We are Kumo citizens and nins. Sasuke stilled. He had never imagined this possibility. An Uchiha who had a casual liaison with some civilian outside Fire Country. A daughter who grew up without a father or clan, most likely looked down on and scorned until some Kumo nin realized she had a Kekai Genkai and sponsored her into the local academy and helped her get suitable instruction. Something stilled in him. No matter what, she was still an Uchiha. She, her son, her children, they had the Sharingan Kekai Genkai. Your son will need training to master the Sharingan. He commented neutrally. She snorted and activated the Kekai Genkai herself. 3 tomos spun in each eye. I will teach them. And their father most definitely will help. He is very good at developing techniques and training methods. We do not need you. We do not need Konoha. Sasuke recoiled at the absolute rejection. Dimly he was aware of several Kumo nins closing in on them. Habara-sama, is this Konoha nin bothering you? The captain of the patrol squad eyed said nin warily. The female Uchiha, Habara, snorted and turned away, placing one hand on her son's shoulder, gently guiding him away. Not particularly. But Uchiha-san seems to be a little lost. Please make sure he returns to his hostel safely. Of course. Sasuke did not protest. If he started a fight, he and the Konoha group would more than likely be expelled from the Chunin exams. Besides, he had a name. The entire group was frozen, shocked by the time Sasuke finished his report. The Godime was more than a little concerned. An unsanctioned liaison was understandable, but a child that was never taken in, the visible proof that the Sharingan Kekai Genkai was clearly out of Konoha's control, the council would throw a fit. Neji stared intently at Sasuke. You said her name is Habara. Hi. Neji glanced at Shino. Habara was the name of the kunoichi who gave orders to the second stage examiners. She was also pregnant and matches your description, though she never activated the Sharingan around us. Neji explained. The Kumo nins respect her skills, even pregnant. They said anyone who attacked her would regret their foolishness. Shino murmured. Shikamaru frowned as he considered the new information. She is clearly one of these elites, the ones that Kumo has been deploying. He pinched the bridge of his nose. It explains how so many of our shinobis were slaughtered. They were up against a Sharingan mistress who is more than likely a prodigy. Kurenai looked at everyone. What are we going to do? We can't just let Kumo have the Sharingan Kekai Genkai. Tsunade laughed abrasively. Let them. They already have it. The only way to stop them is to assassinate Habara and any children she might have. No. Sasuke's clenched fists hit the low coffee table. I won't let you. His own Sharingan activated and swirled into the Mangekyu. Tsunade met his eyes without any fear. That is what Konoha's council will want. That is what they will push for unless I get some support for what I want. Sasuke inhaled sharply. His eyes subsided into the Tri-Kama Sharingan. I will not let it. If I find out Konoha ordered the assassination of my only living relatives, I will defect. Kakashi coughed discreetly. Why don't one of the kunoichis here talk with Habara-san? Perhaps she might be willing to consider migration if given some incentives. Sasuke snorted. You didn't hear her, Kakashi. She hates Konoha. She'd rather spit on us than accept anything to do with us. Kakashi shrugged. Perhaps. But if we try, we might get a better idea of what makes her tick. If we know just who or what she hates about Konoha, we might be able to take steps. He trailed off knowingly. Everyone turned to Kurenai. The genjutsu mistress stiffened, then slumped at the expectant gazes. Oh, all right. I'll try talking with her. But I'll need some help tracking her. She looked around expectantly. Shino stirred. My Kike have her scent. They will be able to track her. Kurenai nodded slowly. Okay. We'll start tomorrow after breakfast. The rest of you work on digging info on aka Arashi and Hanishin while training the genins. The third exam is coming up. It is one-on-one fighting and they'll need the practice. Kurenai frowned as she watched the pregnant woman negotiate with the craftsman. She was clearly commissioning a weapon of sort given the type of products he had on display on the walls and under the glass counters. With studied casualness she strode into the store and studied the kunai on display. They were a little different with tails of wire. Were they supposed to be used in conjunction with a Raiden jutsu? What can I do for you, Yuahi-san? Kurenai carefully looked up into the neutral porcelain mask of the younger Kunoichi. Kurenai felt a pang of longing. She missed her own son, an academy student who was under the guardianship of Yumino Iruka when she was away on missions. I was wondering if we could talk. Habara raised an arched brow. Talk? I have little time to spare. If you wish, we can talk while I pick up my son. Grateful she hadn't been stonewalled, Kurenai followed the Kumo Kunoichi, Shino trailing some distance behind. Kurenai tried to piece together what they had managed to find out about Habara. Last name unknown, husband unknown, son unknown, very private and violent when personal information was revealed without her consent. She completely terrified or awed most of her comrades. Only her husband and a few elites could match her. Even heavily pregnant, she could easily match the average Junin. She had a sadistic sense of humor and was relentless in the pursuit of her goals. Finally, Kurenai decided to take the first step. Why are you so against Konoha? Because Konoha is full of arrogant bigots that put too much emphasis on bloodlines and not enough on ability. Habara answered quickly. Kurenai recoiled. That's not true. There are many nins who come from non-shinobi clans and have no Kekkei Genkais. I studied hard to become a genjutsu expert. Habara glanced at the older Kunoichi with knowing eyes. Who are you trying to fool? Me or yourself? Konoha basically pigeonhole its shinobi from a very young age and never factor in growth unless it is truly exponential. You showed promise in genjutsu, so you were groomed for that field. You were never encouraged to expand your kenjutsu or ninjutsu beyond the basics. Even what you do practice is heavily laced with a genjutsu component. She tossed her head back. Here in Kumo we feel differently. Kurenai considered the view an outsider would have. Specialization was necessary, but over-specialization could be lethal. Was that why Kumo was thrashing Konoha in most of the past clashes? Because Konoha nins weren't flexible enough to react to new situations. The genjutsu mistress bit her lip. Uzumaki Naruto was the master of unpredictable. If he were here, he could change this Kunoichi's mind, just like he changed Tsunade-sama's mind about being Hokage, or Yuki-sama about becoming a leader, or the dozens of other people he'd met since he became a genin. But he wasn't, he would never be, because no one had the spine to stand up to the villagers, to defy the council, to support the Hokage. And now they were suffering and it was entirely their own fault. But she had to try. For her village. Carefully she decided to try a different tactic. Habara-san, I'm not sure if you are aware of the Uchiha massacre. One shinobi was responsible for killing almost every Uchiha in Konoha. He is presumed dead, but you should know S-class nins are very hard to kill. He's already killed all but his brother. If he finds out about you and your children, Kurenai trailed off. And was shocked by the amused expression on Habara's face. If you are talking about Uchiha Itachi, I have no concerns regarding him. We have had encounters and we understand each other. He wished to destroy the Uchiha clan of Konoha, not the Sharingan Kekkei Genkai. Habara explained mildly. Then her expression brightened. We are here. Kurenai followed the younger woman through a trade entrance to a crafter's shop. The narrow corridor wound past several furnaces and smithies and into the open air of an enclosed courtyard. In the middle of the courtyard was a massive stone block, a granite boulder created by a Doden Jutsu. Some distance away was an older man, a craftsman from his leather apron. He was kneeling next to a small boy in olive green shorts, black boots and a cream t-shirt decorated by random navy blue spirals and crescent moons. The child was no more than 5, barely old enough to start in the academy, and he was testing the range of the fingerless fighting gloves made of spandex and reinforced by metal mesh. They were a custom job since very few children would require gloves that could take damage and channel chakra. Habara smiled warmly. Ryuchi, have you tried your new gloves? The sweet chubby face brightened. Hi Ka-san, I think I can do the new technique I was trying to develop with these gloves. Habara nodded encouragingly. Why don't you show me? Even if it doesn't work, it might give you some new insight. Perhaps Tu-san might have some ideas. Ryuchi nodded determinedly and closed his eyes. When they opened, they were bloody red, Sharingan active with 1 tomo in the left eye and 2 tomos in the right. Kurenai watched as the boy turned away to face the boulder. And then he concentrated, holding his hands at his sides, fingers slightly curled into claws. Chakra gathered around each hand, faintly purple energy more concentrated towards the back of each finger, then down towards each fingertip. Then the boy slashed, clawed at the air in front of him. 2 blades of purple energy formed and flew towards the boulder, slicing off big chunks where they impacted before dissipating. Kurenai gasped. Shino's eyes widened. The craftsman smiled proudly. Habara frowned, a faint crease marring her brow. The pregnant Kunoichi walked towards her son and placed one hand on his shoulder. Those chakra blades, they are not wind blades. It was a statement. The boy shook his head. It is my power shaped outside me. I got the idea after watching Yugito Ba-san practice using Nibi's claws. Habara chuckled. Do you think it is something others can do? Something you can teach? Ryuchi frowned. I don't know. He confessed. Takeo-san had to make many pairs of gloves for me before we found the design of wire and mesh that worked. It might be different for everyone depending on their affinities and chakra capacities. Habara nodded. But this is a good start. We will show your father your project. I hope you have been keeping good notes. She added sternly. The little boy looked offended. Ka-san, do you think I'm an amateur? I always keep notes. It is the first thing you and Tu-san taught me to do. Takeo chuckled. He is right, Habara-sama. He's kept a thorough record of all the past designs that didn't work, so we didn't duplicate any previous failures. I also have some ideas about different materials that might have more oomph for future production. Habara tousled the boy's messy hair and drew him close to her leg. It was difficult to crouch in her advanced condition, but she never restrained herself from displaying her affections. It was something he had taught her. Kurenai watched the little boy hug his mother's leg tightly before reaching up to pat her rounded belly and stand on tiptoe to press his ear against the lower curve. Habara looked at the Konoha nin's all affection and warmth drained. This is my child, my son, and I will protect him. I will never trust Konoha with his safety because you will let him be used and abused with no consideration for his health or happiness. You've let it happen to so many of your prodigies and geniuses. I will never trust such unworthy, weak-spined, two-faced cowards to protect my child. Tell that to your Hokage. And most especially tell that to your council. My family will never step foot in Konoha unless everyone who is over the age of 10 as of today is dead. Red bled into black as her Sharingan activated and trapped the 2 Konoha nins in a mild but difficult to dispel genjutsu. By the time Kurenai broke free from the illusion, mother and son had vanished. The only one in the courtyard was the craftsman Takeo, who was cleaning the rock fragments around the test boulder. He smirked seeing the Konoha nins return to the now. Habara-sama has left with Ryuchi-kun. I guess she's had enough of you too. My advice, forget whatever plans you have. She really hates Konoha. Kurenai and Shino had no choice but to return back to the hostel and make their report. She hates Konoha. I would strongly discourage any kidnapping scheme. She will come down like the wrath of the Shin'i Megami on the one responsible. The streets will run with blood if she feels cornered. Kurenai advised bluntly. She is an elite kunoichi and a mother, and an angry woman does not forgive or forget. The males shuddered and nodded. Shikamaru heaved a deep breath. Bad news kept coming and coming. When would it end? Shikamaru had a nasty feeling it wouldn't. Neji was slightly disturbed. This boy, he is a prodigy, a genius. From what we heard, yes. He was the one who developed the theory, designed the gloves, tested different patterns. I think the wires are designed to channel the chakra in a particular manner, like hand seals. Shino murmured softly. And this is his latest project. Kurenai sighed. He has done enough that his parents have taught him how to keep proper records, and to take his ideas seriously enough to finance the development costs. Takeo, the craftsman, was quite comfortable taking orders from a child. It's like he's done it before. Sasuke closed his eyes tightly. He is a genius. A jutsu developer. He uses the Sharingan to see how the chakra flows and make adjustments to have the effect he wants. Tsunade gulped her herbal tea, feeling very glad she had a supply of the special preparation. She was going to need the calming soporific qualities. And they still didn't know who the new Rokudaime Raikage was. She caught Sasuke's eye. I don't know what we are going to do, Uchiha. If the boy is doing this on a whim with little formal training, imagine what he can do when he is older with the advice and training of masters. When the council finds out, and they will insist on kidnapping or killing Ryuchi. This is going to be a very costly and futile endeavor. His mother, and Kumo, will not take this lying down. Sasuke's expression was unexpectedly solemn. I know Godaime-sama. I'm beginning to see. I only hope the new Raikage will be someone the council will think twice before attacking. If he takes Ryuchi under his personal protection, it will make any Konoha assassination missions a very expensive proposal. Tsunade nodded slowly and smiled a more honest, warmer smile. You are correct, Sasuke. Before leaving Kumo, I will speak to the Raikage and drop a few hints. Sasuke nodded and closed his eyes to stop the tears. His clan was not dead. The name might be lost, but the bloodline flourished. It remained strong and true. He only wished it was blooming in Konoha. Kurenai frowned as she watched the genins wait in the candidate section to be called. Unlike the Konoha third stage exam, the matchups had not been announced in advance. The genins had to be prepared for any opponent. Shino and Neji were down there with all the genins and the other Junin senseis. The Godaime was in the special dignitary area with the other cages and daimyos. Kurenai looked at Shikamaru, who had just joined the Konoha group. Have you heard anything? Shikamaru shook his head. They're doing small talk. The Raikage is a cagey bastard. He is sitting tight on the information. Probably plans on making a big spectacle. They haven't even announced the matchups. Figured Shizune could keep track of things for the Hokage, so here I am. Have you heard anything about the elites? Negative head shakes. No one is talking and the civilians do not know the details. It is standard Black Ops practice to keep identities hidden. Shish. Sakura hissed. The Raikage is speaking. Omada Hiroshi couldn't help the gleeful smile splitting his face. Who is this successor you are so pleased about? Moroshi Izuku, the Mizukage, voiced the question on everyone's mind. The Yondaime Raikage smirked as he took a special note of Konoha's interest. Oh, I have every right to be happy with my choice of successor, Izuku-san. He has a very high profile and skill level. In fact, some would say he outclasses the average cage. And I would have to agree. Everyone blinked at that claim. Just be a little patient and you'll see what I mean. Tsunade frowned as she caught the nuances, the smug certainty. This Rokudaime was someone big, someone with impact, but who? Which of the new elites? The Raikage stiffened. The third exam is starting. In the pit below, a door opened to allow a slim blonde man to emerge from the rooms built under the stadium seating. His long legs and slim hips were outlined by the durable material of slightly baggy gray cargo pants that vanished into the standard black combat boots most Kumo elites preferred. He wore a short-sleeved blue t-shirt that outlined the sculpted torso and broad shoulders with the Kumo Hite around the left bip. Tan-toned arms covered with intricate seals in yellow, lilac, red, blue, and brown from bicep to the backs of his wrists. Somehow everyone suspected there would be more tattoos underneath his clothing. His head was covered with messy uneven bangs that reached his shoulders, blonde tresses that spiked around his face framing the tan chiseled undeniably masculine features. Long straight brows set above penetrating almond-shaped blue eyes. A narrow aquiline nose, a wide passionate mouth framed by a trio of faint white lines, a defined jawline and strongly corded throat. Namikaze-sama. The hushed whisper echoed and rebounded around the stadium, growing in intensity and volume. It's Namikaze-sama. Namikaze-sama. It's him. Oh Kami-sama. It is Namikaze Naruto. I can't believe he is the third examiner. The Konoha nins froze and watched the blonde wave his hand and smile. They watched and heard the adoration, admiration and respect allocated to the once Konoha nin. He hasn't taken any genin teams or apprentices. My brother is in the academy and he's hoping to be his student. My cousin was on his second squadron few years ago. Tuga tells me he is Tushin in the field. Absolute destruction with god-like stamina and control. Understandable since he is a Jinchuriki like Yugito-sama. Don't be an idiot. He's like that before he uses the tails. When he draws on the Biju, nothing can stop him. Has he ever lost control? Not against allies. He always recognizes his team. I saw him go 6 tails once. He was antsy like any other berserker, but she calmed him down easily enough. Knowing laughter. How could she not? She is his match, his wife, his mate. He has no idea how much I respect him, for having the guts to bed and marry her. She is one cold bitch. The tone held nothing but respectful admiration. Not around him. A knowing leer. You haven't seen the two after they've finished a high-class mission. They don't bother waiting for a more secure base or with private rooms or tents. A rueful chuckle. Trust me, the two of them could stay up all night and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed the next day. Rueful envy and admiration. It is like having recharges them. Malice-tinged female laughter. Too bad most males don't have his endurance and stamina or technique. I hear you have trouble keeping it up for an hour, Aikatsu. A softer, wistful feminine sigh. I met one of his old lovers in Tea Country. She said he was the best she ever had. That he could make her come with a casual touch. And she was a few years older and more experienced than him at the time. Really? Did she say anything else about him? That he completely spoiled her for other guys? How do you know she was being honest? I asked around. Most of the people in town were used to seeing Mariko-sama with 2 or even 3 lovers, but in the time Namikaze-senpai was with her she was monogamous. A few weeks after they parted company she went back to her old ways of keeping 2 or 3 guys around. A hesitant pause. You don't mean Mishimoto Mariko, do you? Of course I mean Mishimoto Mariko, you idiot. Why would I address any other Mariko as Sama? But she is one of Kumo's biggest clients. She controls several trade routes and owns several merchant convoys and warehouses in every single elemental country. A much younger male squeaked. And she is really good looking for a woman her age. An admiring voice. Her jugs are nearly as big as the Godime Hokage. A slap upside the head. Don't be a fool, Chiba. Mariko-sama did not get her current position and influence by simply being a pretty face. She had the drive, the ambition and the resolve to go against much more experienced merchant barons when her husband died and her stepson killed himself in that racing incident. A more thoughtful male voice. She probably taught Namikaze-sama all he knows about bargaining and negotiations. I'm surprised they are still friends. Mariko-sama said she knew whatever they had was only temporary. He made it clear from the start that he had other goals than being a merchant baron and would eventually be moving on. Did she say anything else about him? Just that whichever woman snagged him would be one lucky bitch. A chorus of feminine sighs. Too bad he's completely devoted to her. I don't understand how they got together in the first place, she's so cold. Have you ever seen the two of them together? It is like fire and ice. Naruto smiled as he absorbed the positive energy, the respect and adoration of Kumo, things he had once yearned for from Konoha. Carefully he kept his gaze from the Konoha contingent. He recognized them, but they were his past and of no concern for his future. A quick customized jutsu to amplify his voice, and he spoke. Welcome. Welcome to the third stage of Kumo's Chunin exams. I hope all our candidates are rested and ready, but before we proceed to the one-on-one match-ups there will be another culling. His warm soothing voice became firm. Of all the genin teams that passed, only 2 from each team will be allowed to proceed. There was an immediate uproar of protest, but Naruto was quick to counter it. You might protest this. Why allow us to reach this point only to deny us? I will give you the answer. Life is not fair. You will accept missions where you must make a decision. If you are the captain, you will have to choose which of your subordinates to sacrifice so the rest of the team can survive or complete the mission. If you are a Chunin, you might face the most difficult decision of your shinobi career. How willing are you to sacrifice yourself for your village? Are you willing to die? Risk capture or disgrace? Are you willing to pay the price so your team, and your village benefits? These are difficult questions, things you must consider, things you will face. Today you are here to display your village's strength before allies, enemies, and potential clients. Future income depends on how impressive a show you make. If you are not certain of your skills, if you know you are the weakest in your team, are you willing to make the sacrifice? To step back and allow your teammates to shine. To get the attention. This is not a life or death match. There will be other Chunin exams. So choose. One genin from each team must give up. If the decision is not made in 5 minutes, the whole team is disqualified. Each cage stared at the young man, the third stage examiner, with new interest. He makes a very good point. Forcing the candidates to face and admit their fears and weaknesses. To pay the price required to climb the ranks. The Mizukage murmured. The Tsukikage stared at the blonde with eyes full of admiration. And the way it was announced. The candidates are completely unprepared. The pressure placed on them will be enormous. They will be admitting their weaknesses before all. And the argument being counterbalanced by the need for personal sacrifice. I know many Junins who have yet to learn that lesson. The Kazekage smirked. Naruto is like that. Full of surprises and unexpected depths. The Kusakage frowned, then glanced at the Hokage and the Tsukikage. Namikaze. Any relation? He trailed off, delicately looking pointedly at the Raikage, who smiled. His father. Could have knocked me over with a feather when the boy walked up to me and said he wanted to sign up. The Raikage carefully looked at the Hokage and Fire Country's daimyos. Both were smiling bittersweet smiles. The Hokage stirred, awareness sharpening. Naruto was always like that. Good at surprising people. She latched onto a certain bit of information. He is married. The Raikage nodded. Yes. His wife is a Kumo Kunoichi. The Hokage nodded, slowly taking in the information. Is it possible to meet him? The Raikage smirked. Oh yes. Most definitely. But he will not be available until after the third stage is finished. He is the examiner. Sakura clenched her fist, nearly splintering the wooden rail. What does that baka think he is doing? She snarled. He is testing them. Shikamaru countered mildly as he tapped the ashes off his cigarette. Sacrifices are necessary at times. Isn't it best the candidates find out if they are capable of handling the short end of the stick ahead of time? But you don't abandon your team. Sakura cried out. The Junin snorted and looked away from the pink-haired medic Nin. All of them were used to taking the more risky missions where sacrifices were sometimes needed. Sometimes it was just a teammate's general well-being, because he got wounded playing bait, but sometimes it was permanent, to delay pursuers. Sasuke stared down at the pit. What have you been doing all this time, Dobi? What have you done to get so much admiration and prestige? Naruto waited and watched as the genin separated into quick huddle sessions. They did not let the shock slow them down too much. Now would they be willing to accept the bitterness? To draw the short stick? They were. One by one only 2 candidates stepped forward from each team. In most cases it was 2 shinobis, sometimes a kunoichi and a shinobi. Naruto smiled gently and glanced at the side where the assistants were feeding the data into the system that would generate the electronic matchup. He studied each candidate quickly. They were nervous, wondering if they made the right call, but willing to accept the burden. That was a good sign. Congratulations to those who decided to step back and to those who have stepped forward. You have made a difficult call. It is simply one of many you will have to as you grow older and advance in each of your respective villages. Now each matchup with generated electronically 5 minutes before the duel, so all candidates have to be present at all time. There will be 1 round completed today. 2 if we have time. The remaining matches will be fought tomorrow. If you feel you cannot proceed due to injury, you can concede. The rules are simple. Anything goes. Winner will be decided by knockout, concession, or when I say so. The matchups were generated. The genins called down. The duels fought. For the most part it was a standard genin battle with the occasional flashy jutsu or kekai genkei being used. Naruto was a ruthlessly fair referee, quick to interfere before any permanent injuries resulted. As the morning and afternoon progressed, the genins were whittled down into the survivors who would proceed to the semis and finals. Names displayed on the flashing diode board. Nobuden Sakama of Aiwa, Hayate Mitsuko of Konoha, Momochi Wakashi of Mizu, Shumaru of Suna, Odama Kiyoshi of Kumo, Roshinta Zaraki of Kumo, Masum Reiko of Kumo. Naruto nodded, satisfied by the names that remained. Tomorrow the semi-finals and finals will take place. Candidates who need healing, please proceed to the infirmary. If you have your own medic nin, please use their services. And then he vanished in a swirl of air and a column of blue-red sparks. Sasuke glared down at the stadium that was heavily damaged by the matches. Kumo had chosen not to do any repairs other than reinforcing structural damage. The candidates had been forced to use the rubble as part of their tactics, like they would have to in real life. Where did he go? It is of no concern to us. Aburame Shino spoke quietly. Only one of his students reached the semi-finals and would be fighting the next day. Besides, we will be seeing him tomorrow. Besides, Mitsuko will be fighting and I want to go over some strategy sessions with her for tomorrow's fights. The next day the visitors and shinobis and candidates and potential clients assembled in the stadium for the last day of the 3rd stage. While they waited for the examiner, Namikaze Naruto, to make an appearance, the Raikage surreptitiously patted the parcel wrapped in brown paper and secured by string that lay on his lap. I will be naming my successor before the matches begin. This is a little gift I've been meaning to give him. I think presenting it to him while announcing his new promotion would make it a memorable reminder. The stadium and the dignitaries waited and watched. At the stroke of 10 the examiner, Namikaze Naruto, arrived in a swirl of sparks. The Raikage nodded to the bolt operative who rang the gong for silence. Everyone in the stadium turned to the box where the cages and daimyos sat. The Raikage waited until he was certain he had their attention before speaking. As most of us know, I am an old man. I took up this position when my successor died. I kept it because I couldn't find someone I could see as the Rokudaime Raikage. That is until now. He has been tested and ratified by his peers in Kumo's council. His candidacy was accepted without hesitation by Lightning Country's daimyo. He is a relative newcomer to Kumo, but what he has accomplished is near miraculous. After several years as a bolt operative, he is ready to leave field duty behind and accept this new responsibility, to be Raikage. Kumo, I will be stepping down by the end of this week, so I present to you your new Rokudaime Raikage. Namikaze Naruto. The stadium erupted into spontaneous cheers and whoops and screams of encouragement and support. Out of the roar emerged the chant. Na mik's. Na mik's. Na mik's. Na mik's. Na mik's. Every single cage but 3 watched near shell-shocked as the new Rokudaime Raikage, the 3rd stage examiner, bowed and waved his hands, accepted the support and tribute. Hiroshi waited for a slight lull before speaking. Most of you know Naruto as a Junin comrade, a diplomat with many allies outside our borders, a skilled contract negotiator, a teacher to many aspiring young nins, a counselor to quite a few of our academy students and genins. Now that he has left Bolt, I have no concerns with revealing his other aspects. With those enigmatic words, he tossed the brown paper wrapped package in an arc across the stadium. The blonde leapt in the air to catch the package. A no-seals wind blade cut the strings, allowing the package to be unwrapped. He pulled out a handful of cream-colored material, dropping the paper and string to the floor. A garment of some kind. And then he laughed long and hard, a joyful sound. He grabbed the material in both hands and swung it to put it on, a coat of some kind. A knee-length sleeveless garment designed to be worn open with no buttons to close it. A strong breeze filled the stadium, causing the materials of the long skirts to billow and ruffle his hair. His very appearance struck a chord in the hearts of those who remembered, those who had met the Yondaime Hokage. It was like seeing Namikaze Minato all over again, like he never died more than 25 years ago. In kanji on the left front panel were the symbols for Rokudaime and Reikage embroidered in deep purple. On the right front panel were other symbols, a blue crescent moon wrapped around an orange swirl that resembled a whirlpool. Below in black was the silhouette of a nine-tailed fox. And then he turned so everyone in the audience could see the bigger design on his back. Embroidered in crimson silk thread were the symbols for storm. Shikamaru gaped, his cigarette falling from his open mouth. Aka Arashi. Sasuke stared through Sharingan eyes. Envy, jealousy, regret burned his soul. Sakura shook her head. It can't be. It must be some kind of trick. It isn't. Shino countered. His eyes did not move from the spectacle. Inochi turned puce as the full implications of everything hit him. Shikaku popped 2 antacids and took a deep swig from a hip flask before handing it to his old teammate, who downed half of the remainder. A lone tear trailed from Kakashi's uncovered eye. He looks like Minato, doesn't he? Everyone turned to stare at the smirking Gama Sanin, who had somehow snuck up on the Konohan group. What? Did you think I'd miss seeing my second apprentice become a Kage? He smirked even wider and sipped sake from his own hip flask. The Sanin smiled slowly as he settled his eyes on his student, his greatest achievement other than Ika Ika Paradise. The brat was damn troublesome, just like his father, but most definitely worth it. He will make an excellent Reikage, since his birth village is filled with bigots, cowards, fools, and incompetents. I'm definitely thinking of settling here on a more permanent basis. Kumo is a bit cold, but the women here are more receptive to a little flirting and wordplay. His eyes glazed. Those Chunin twins made me pass out with just words and a little skin. Unfortunately, they also stole my wallet to teach me a lesson. It inspired me to shift my perspective for my next book. A she-thief who specializes in one-of-a-kind collectibles. He smirked at the males. The first release will be in Kumo, followed by Iwa and Suna. Then he walked away to join a group of pretty Kumo civilian women. Naruto smiled as the cheers died down, but the positive energy remained. He could feel the thrill, the barely restrained eagerness. And it charged him. A fierce smile split his face before he began speaking. Thank you, Kumo, for welcoming me, for accepting me, for supporting me. Hiroshi Jii-san, you remind me of another Kage, one who has been dead for a long time now, but for the longest time he was the closest thing I had to family. For years I fought to make him proud, to live by the principles he held so high. It did not work because the people around me did not feel the same way. But here in Kumo, here I can see the will of fire. And it inspires me. The crowd swelled and cheered in response, in affirmative. Naruto looked at the awestruck Kumo genins, the 3 who had made the cut to reach the semis of the 3rd stage. In each of you 3 and all other Kumo nins I see a little bit of myself. The determination and drive to excel and be the best you can be. I have never been a Junin sensei, and I doubt if I ever will, with the duties of being Reikage, but it does not stop me from teaching and learning. In the years to come, do not rest on your laurels. Intrigue me. Inspire me. Awe me. If I can see the spark within, I will help you. If you specialize in something I don't, I will find those that can teach you. If Kumo has no specialists, I will look for them among our new allies, Suna and Iwa. If it is truly esoteric and long forgotten, Kumo will support your quest of self-improvement. If you can make a good case, R&D or Bolt will finance your research and travels. I will not let your desire for more to go unfulfilled. Those who want to learn will have avenues that are usually only available to the wealthier shinobi clans. Hiroshi